Sure.
There was even a news clip back in the day of us, the only biracial family in this neighborhood, even though it was a black neighborhood, it was like, well, it was welcome, but they were like, wow, when you grow up broke, my mama used to always say when I was fussing about money or whatever, she said, boy, you can't fall off the floor. Dr. King said there's only 2 books I have in my briefcase. That's the Bible and Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman. My friend got killed, and so it's like, I don't want to relive that with nobody else in that space. I don't want to act as if, this didn't happen. We're going to make it work. We got $1. We're going to make $1 out of 15 cents. We're going to make this work. That is hip hop, right?
We appreciate all the time that you have given to us. We try to bring the most interesting, captivating stories that help you understand how a person came to chase their dreams and reach their highest potential. But we need help from you. If you can please subscribe to YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We would really appreciate that. It would help us build our audience and our reach, and we would be able to continue to have the most incredible stories told to you so that you can understand that success and your higher self is only an inch away. We hope you're having a great day and enjoy the episode that you're watching.
500 and growing.
Podcast.
Dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you. Working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you. Ready to set it off and on, cause I see you. Correcting all that is wrong, cause I see you. Cause I see you. Hey. My name is Jesus Azteca 500 Sanchez. I am the host of the 500 and Growing podcast. And today we have Pastor Phil Jackson. Now, he's an incredible person that has charisma, that works in North Lawndale. He is the CEO of the Firehouse Art Center. He birthed in 2003. Is that in 2003? You had
2006, 2003. We started a hip hop church, and then 2006 we started the nonprofit. 2007 we bought the building. Yeah. The Firehouse Community Art Center of Chicago.
Yeah, and it's where is it located?
On Hamlin and Ogden in North Lawndale on the west side, 2111 South Hamlin.
2111 South Hamlin. Yeah, if you don't know, man, they have incredible art classes. They have cooking classes. If you're a B-boy, you want to go get your B-boy on, you go over there. Yeah. Or B-girl, right? Yeah. And so, the Firehouse is something that's really important to North Lawndale in general because it shows like a different side of North Lawndale that we don't see on the news. We usually see our communities and communities of color because I come from Little Village that's adjacent to North Lawndale. We always see the violence associated with our community, but we hardly ever see the incredible, beautiful things that we're doing. Yeah. And the Firehouse Community Art Center is something that is beautiful, something that is positive. I've seen, even when you walk in there, you have like a different aura. You see people with a different aura. They're just like, I'm positive, right? Positivity. Right.
It's a different, our intentionality at the Firehouse Community Art Center is to have, when you walk in, just the reality that you are valued, just in the artwork and the look, the people, the attitude, the vibe, and no telling what folks may be going through when they come through, and or young people especially, but when they get there, this is not school, this is not some kind of drudgery of a place to come to, so the art objectively speaks to that, and the people speak to that as well.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. I want to give you a big round of applause because the work that you do is impactful. I think that the community wouldn't be the same without you. So everybody, let's give a big round of applause to Pastor Phil.
Praise God, man. Amen.
All right.
Love.
So Pastor Phil, why don't you flash us back? Like, what was it like when you were growing up, and where did you grow up, and what was it like to be Little Phil before you became the pastor?
Right. You know, I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, man, in the projects. We call it the Jets in the hood right there, 27th and Benton, and hung out with friends all over the hood, man, from different projects that we were into, Wayne Minor projects and others. And you know, my mom was white, my dad is black. Grew up in the inner city, in the hood, and we struggled in a working class family. You know, trying to make ends meet. You know, went to public schools and went to private high school, and you know, had to get there early in the morning to work at the school, to sweep the gym, to pay for some of the tuition. All white Catholic high school, because my pops was like, "Nah, you're not gonna go to Central High School. Somebody got shot by the school." I wanted to go to Central, man. I just wanted to ball with these cats at Central High School down the street from my house. But after that incident, it was like, "Nah, we're gonna go somewhere else." So I caught like 4 or 5 buses to go to school.
No, I understand.
You know, yeah, 4 or 5 in the morning with my dad in the morning because he's going to work. I'm catch a couple of the buses. You know, the white kids is like, "Well, you need a ride? Well, you got a car?" I mean, all these kind of things that calling me out my name that I was not used to in the hood. Like I mean, you know, anybody really, everybody was the same struggle in the spot, you know what I mean? So this is like privileged world, you know? And so Muggs had apartments near the school because they lived too far. Their parents got them a little apartment. How you 16, you got an apartment, man? It was crazy. So I'm going to school, playing football, played a little basketball, a little racist stuff, jumped off with the coach after my sophomore year. So I stopped hooping there, you know, just hooping in the streets, but being able to play football, which I think gave me some balance. You know, I was calling myself trying to be in the streets in Kansas City, you know, with some dope boys and trying to be out there in the street and fight a little bit. But you know, it wasn't me. You know, it was like I was trying to be somebody else that they were. You know, and trying to catch up with them. One of my friends got killed, and that was sort of a turning point to be like, now I'm not gonna mess with y'all anymore. I mean, it wasn't like I'm better than anybody else, but it's like, you know, I still hung out, but I didn't go as far as I thought I was going to be going with them after that incident. And so, you know, went to Bishop Miege High School, the name of the high school, Catholic school, still there now. And being able to, you know, catch these buses back to school. It was great. Graduation, you know, brothers, you know, gave his whole speech on, I was the only black kid in the whole school for 4 years. And what it took for me to stay in that school. And I was, you know, you graduate, I'm playing around. Man, they talking about you at graduation. I'm like, what you mean? And my man was breaking down about my own journey, not necessarily knowing how he valued it. I'm a good friend of mine, but didn't know how he valued it.
Yeah, I went to St. Rita. And so St. Rita is my 79th and Western. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in Little Village. So, you know, I was kind of in the same situation where mom was like, you know, not to downplay any school at all because I value everybody, but she was just like, yo, you can't go because we were across gang lines.
Yeah.
The border, and so it was just like, you go to that school, they're gonna know that you're from this side, and you're gonna be messed with, or you're gonna be potentially a target. So I told her, I was like, I went to a Catholic elementary school. And all the kids were going to St. Rita, and I was like, yo, everybody's going to St. Rita, let me go to St. Rita. So I had to catch those buses, and I had to do that work as well to like sustain my tuition, you know. And so you know, I have a love-hate relationship with that school, right? The love is that I'm comfortable to be around people that don't look like me, and assume my space, The negative thing is that there were also that racist component of like, just like you knew that you had to come with comebacks because you were gonna get made fun of, right? And you had to be prepared to like joust with somebody verbally or even physically if you needed to, right? Yeah,
I had to fight a couple of fights I got into. Some of the teachers were cool. I didn't get suspended sometimes. I got, you know, a day off here, day off there, but it wasn't, they realized it was something going on with the school, you know, and some rowdy kids in those spaces that way too. But yeah, you got to be able to navigate that space. You know, you don't have all the wherewithal about you at the time, you know, as you may now, recognizing privilege, recognizing all that. You're like, dang, these guys is rich. We broke. And you come home and you didn't think you was broke. Everything was cool until you went to that school. It's like, yo, we ain't got no money.
No, yeah, I was riding the CTA, man. And so everybody had their own car. And so you were just like, yo, how you going to go there?
And then the one bus cut short where the typical route would get me at least a little closer. It looked like I'm walking from the neighborhood. Like you want to stunt, like I ain't really, man, I was walking in the main street, like the main boulevard where the bus changes route. Now I'm walking out, hey, Phil, hey, Phil. And they're honking at me like, pick me up. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Trying to go on dates with girls and get to a point where my dad won't let me go out with you because you're black. I'm like, yo, you didn't know that about your dad before you asked, so I just stopped messing with girls altogether at that school because it was like, I don't want to go through no other kind of situation with some relationship and dad is this way or that. I don't want to deal with it.
For real, yeah.
Just started dating girls around the way in the neighborhood, man. Let me just hang out with y'all, not to mess around with these cats at this school. So
no, yeah, I mean, I had that with Mexican parents because we have colorism, right? And so I'm of the darker shade, right? And so
right, that's true.
They're like,
that's the truth.
Who's it?
Right.
What? Nah. We not riding like that. And so you had to experience racism and colorism in that way as a young person, where it was like you really liked the girl really liked you, but the parents weren't down with you being with that girl. But come to talk about like ethnicity and just how was it growing up, and what time period were you growing up in Kansas City, and then you were biracial, right?
Yeah.
So my children are biracial.
Okay.
Right. My wife is Polish. I'm Mexican. And so, we are able to live a life where it's more normal than it was.
Definitely.
When you were growing up. Like, what was it like to be biracial when you were growing up? And what struggles did you go through? Yeah.
So I'm 61. Right. And so it was 60s and 70s. And black folks in Missouri who want to marry a white man or woman, they had to be married in Kansas, because Missouri wasn't going. And so we had we lived in Missouri, got a home in Missouri, but we, in the hood, but we, I was born in Kansas. Like, let's not, my dad and them, they don't want to trust the Missouri healthcare system with a biracial couple coming in to check on their baby. Man. So Kansas. And so in the hood, everybody trying to figure it out. And you have lived here, you with us. You make it through whatever little challenges may be, whether it's some gang stuff or whatever poverty issue. You good. You here with us. Like, so it's more welcomed in the hood, right? Because everybody's struggling in a similar kind of way. You go outside of that, it's not that welcomed in that context. So my parents moving me in the hood was one of the things to keep us safe. I think it was just me and my sister, and it was an anomaly back then. It was like, yo, black folks just now started marrying white folks. What's going on with y'all? There was even
for sure.
There was even a news clip back in the day of us, the only biracial family in this neighborhood, even though it was a black neighborhood. It was like, well, it was welcome, but they were like, wow, we don't see that, and it was new. It was like brand new. Even my hair, like, let's look at your hair. From even my sisters in the hood, they'd be like, oh, your hair's so curly. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just how my stuff is wired, right? So just all the nuances of all that, like you say, now it's a lot more normalized, and even it's still got issues. You still got crazy folks out there who don't like it, but in the context of it being an anomaly, that's not the case. I was an anomaly in the neighborhood. And then light-skinnedness was coming in with the different R&B groups and different things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you were hitting off with the ladies, as far as like, from what I hear, is that the light-skinned brothers, they got a lot of attention.
That was and it was an era where that was it, and then the light-skinned brothers messed it all up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think about my children, right, and I think like they had to. My oldest had to go to school when she was in preschool, and or pre-K, and she had to like do a presentation about her background.
Okay.
And so that's when we had a discussion about, like, you're from two places, right? Like, your mom's from Poland, I'm from Mexico. And so it's just like you represent these two cultures.
Right.
Right. And so it was wild when my daughter came home and she was just like, hey, Dad, you're black. And I was like, oh, for real? Where did you hear that? She was like, yeah, you're Malik's color. So
okay.
you're black, right?
Okay.
And I was just like, I had to break it down, and I was just like, yo, when people start referring to other people as a color, it's to divide us. Mm-hmm.
True.
Because we're all human, and so
right.
It's wild when you have your children come back home and like things that you were not teaching them, they're learning outside of the house, and you're just like, wow,
right.
Like the tentacles of this caste system hierarchy are like
right
infiltrating your brain, and it's like now we have to counter that. Now we have to understand like how people are divided, like countries lines are divided the earth,
right,
and so
and systems have created that way to benefit other people, you know, whether it's white folks, whether it's black folks, whoever, Latino folks, because of different privileges that they've acquired by staying in that particular lane that way, you know, versus it being inclusive in that space, you know.
And then how did you grapple with being of two groups, right? Like being white and being black? Because like for me, one of the most powerful things that I learned was about the Aztec dancers. So there are two sets of Aztec dancers or Mexica dancers, right? One set is like we play the drum and we don't play that little guitar because that little guitar was European, came from Spain. So that little guitar is like they're predominantly or just in general is like you're a sellout for playing that little guitar, right?
Oh wow!
Like we play the drum, the huehuet.
Okay.
The huehuet is that big drum that right? And so then there's that other faction that they're like the Mexica, right? And then there's the other faction that are the concheros. And the concheros are like when the Spanish came to the Americas, they stopped you from playing that drum. And the only way that we kept the rhythms going was by playing this guitar. And so if you're denying the guitar, then you're denying the fact that it helped continue the culture.
Right.
Right. And so there are concheros that play the guitar, it's called the concha.
Right.
And you'll see them like ding, 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 and they'll play while they're dancing.
Yeah.
And so it's like those factions. And when you're growing up, when I was growing up, and St. Rita, as a matter of fact, at that time when I was reading about the Inquisition, when I was reading about all of these like movements of like torture and genocide, I was just like, damn, that's messed up. But then there's also a sense of like, we are Spanish as well. Like you cannot, and we're African as well.
Right.
Like we cannot run away from that, you know?
Right.
We cannot ignore that and just like focus on the indigenous part of us, because we were a melding pot and the Spanish brought Africans, right? So during the Inquisition in Spain, the Moors had taken over Spain. And so those were black brothers that were taking over the Spanish.
Right.
And so they came out of that, and then out of that, they came to the Americas to colonize.
Right.
And so, you know, even a thing called Talavera, which is like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Mexican plates that have blue ink. That's Muslim. That art is a Muslim art.
Wow.
And so it's just like coming to terms with all of these facets that we are. How did you come to terms with that?
You know, growing up in the hood, you go with those who accept you the most, right? So African Americans accepted me the most. So my swag, my cultural upbringing was connected to black culture. I wasn't around or accepted as well in the white culture. It was an effort to kind of act or play or be something else I wasn't. And so, you know, there's a great book called Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman, who Dr. King said there's only two books I have in my briefcase. That's the Bible and Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman. He pastored a church in the 40s in San Francisco, super duper multicultural church. He's kind of a mystic. That's what I like about Howard, right? And so Howard talked about in the book, Jesus and the Disinherited, that African Americans have this weaker, stronger mindset when it comes to enter into a conversation with white folks where they feel weaker, stronger, whatever it might be. You may have 18 degrees, but you still may feel like, okay, I don't have a company though. I haven't ran a company, and you're in a conversation with business people. So you do something to be equal. And so oftentimes he talks about it's like a cuttlefish, that they'll spew out a mist, a cuttlefish will, in order to not get eaten. But it's not a poison, but the fish doesn't know that. Cuttlefish takes off. So the African American in the setting will say, you know what? I've just formed an IT company, and you ain't formed nothing, but you have an IT background, so you can finesse your way through the conversation, so you can find a way to be equitable and equal in the eyes. And so I found oftentimes there was a sense of proving myself in those circles. And so I went to a white elementary school too, in a Catholic elementary school, and then went to some a few other private schools, but it was like mixed kids in that space. But my mom is white, my dad is black. There was a ownership of who I am and how I'm going to be wired. So I'm not going to be like the brothers who maybe to whatever young lady like you may be experienced, because I didn't grow up with all the swag that brother may have. I'm just going to be this nerdy kind of biracial cat.
Yeah.
But I didn't deny it, but I just know that as I'm walking through life, my first impression by anybody's going to be a black man, a biracial kid, maybe a Puerto Rican, all this kind of looks that you get as a biracial person. And then when I open my mouth, they're like, oh, okay, he's got some black, because of how I grew
you
up.
got the past.
Right, right. And the past is like authenticated because of just the struggle overall. And then even now, sometimes the struggle to find that equal conversation or equal welcome in white circles in different spaces like that, Yeah.
When you were growing up, was there anything that you wanted to change? Like if as a little kid, not in hindsight, but as a little kid, anything that you wanted to change in that was going on, and it could be your family, it could be the world, it could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you grow up broke, my mama used to always say when I was fussing about money or whatever, she said, "Boy, you can't fall off the floor. You can't fall off the floor. So you got to find your way up through it." So one, finding a way to be welcomed in those spaces that I wasn't. I didn't necessarily have the language for that, but just knew it's odd. We were talking for a minute, now you walked away. Okay, I guess we're not talking no more. So those kind of weird things. But I think what I really wanted, me and a friend of mine named Daniel, he was a biracial cat too. He was like native and black, right? And so he was even more outside of the box in context, like I was. And so we would hang out and talk about places for us to go. We need a place to go that is just for us, not us biracial kids, but us kids. And man, so we started talking about what if there was a center, man? We go to a center and what if we had them all over the country? We would just talk about what if we had a space where we could go and just be whatever sports or just be together in those spaces like that. Because we just throwing rocks in the hood and we go hooping, but it wasn't like a space for us to go on a regular basis. That was one of the things I remember distinctly as things evolved in this world. God's got me in now in the midst of that, right? So it was like
finding that space.
Yeah. And it was a couple of people who helped us go to gyms and go to games and different things like that outside my family, but it wasn't our space. We didn't have our space. I do remember that distinctly, yeah.
What were some moments in your life that you had to stand up for yourself as a young child? Is there any time that you had to stand up for yourself?
I think in those decisions with going to all-white Catholic high school and whether it was they're going to go hard in their partying. I'm not going to go that hard, right? So I'm going to be an odd one out. I'm going to get at it, and I don't have no vehicle. So I got to figure out it. Ain't no Uber back then, right? So I got to find a way. I mean, can you get me to this spot? So in some ways to define that position and whatever and however it will be respected or not, I'm just not flowing in that context. I think just the reality of standing up for, am I going to be all the way with these, 25th Street Truce mob thing that I'm with Donnie Stuck and these other guys, or am I going to just play football and just go to this white Catholic high school? I think those some defining moments. My friend got killed, and so it's like, I don't want to relive that with nobody else in that space. I don't want to act as if, this didn't happen and I'm just going to be callous about it. So those particular things stood up, being able to kind of have a vibe of fighting for the underdog. My best friend had muscular dystrophy, growing up. And so different things that he was going through, folks calling him out about his own ability or disability, if you will, caused that connection together. In some regards, we were both disabled, in our own world, mentally, socially. and he was in some regards physically. But I think standing up for growing in a space to where I know I need to stand up in this spot because this is not who I want to be, and I couldn't give you why I didn't want to be in that spot. It was just, this is not how I'm going to go. I mean, I think after a while you get language for that, but right then it's in the moment what I'm not going to do.
Yeah. And what was your family structure like? Like, were you an only child?
No, I had a sister. She was younger, like 4.5 years younger. So she was born in 1968. So she had, she could be born in Missouri. By that time, things had changed,
Okay.
and so she was able to be born. And she had, she was brilliant. She's a professor now at Penn State and been at KU in Lawrence. So she's, 30-some years as a professor doing research on child maltreatment and resilience. And so she, in that academic world, could finesse that a lot more, right? I wasn't going to finesse it a lot more. I just wasn't comfortable in the white spaces where she could, and she could navigate that.
She flourished.
Yeah. But she was still herself. She wasn't anybody else. But I couldn't. I just had to walk. It just wasn't my thing. I just couldn't go further, and that conversation seemed a little phony, and I didn't want to explore if it wasn't going to be phony. I just got hurt from there. That kind of stuff before, so I'm gonna cut it off right now, and this is about as far as I'm gonna have this relationship with you in that space,
No, I totally understand that. Like, there are not very many people that I talked to from high school,
Yeah.
and it's just like we were a group, so it wasn't just like I was the only person that was brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we used to hang out, like all the black kids and the Latino kids would all hang out, and you would see in lunch. It would just be like a group of us and everybody else was white, And so we were probably like 1/10 of the student body. Is there anything that you saw growing up that made you want to make changes in your adulthood?
I mean, I think, my dad was verbally and physically abusive in that context, growing up in that way, going to church every Sunday. After a while, my family was going to church, and then I was the only one who went to church, and everybody else stayed at home. And I think everybody else kind of got out of that vibe because of his attitude. He'd, teach a Sunday school class where he would, leave church cussing the preacher out like, he didn't preach about it, boop thing, and I'm trying to sing in the choir. It was like after a while, I think I assessed that I was going there, so that's the only place he, it wasn't going to hit me at, wasn't going to cuss me out. Until we get to the car or something like that. And so it was like some type of way where I know you're supposed to love me. I know this is, I believe you do, but man, this place, like, can we just, it'll just be more real in that way, Yeah. And so I think that in church, coming to faith in Christ in church, but not really having an understanding what that really means, right? Going, leaving church, hearing other stuff he's talking about, trying to smoke weed to make it understand what he's saying, so I could just make it through, and then hooping, sports, and everything else like that being another form of outlet, so that way I can be so tired when I come home, say what's up, hey, okay, and I go to bed, not to necessarily mess with you about anything else like that. But so I know that being aware of myself, being aware of my own stuff, being owning my choices, owning my decisions in such a way where, if my choice hurt you or harmed you, I want to own that and recognize how I can be better. I think those realities, and recognizing I want a God that's touchable and real and grimy, and not one that's so far off that I think I kind of thought that's how it was going to be with God in that way, right? And so not necessarily knowing that, I just knew it was distant. But I think those things that, stand out for me, I think, in light of what I learned and how I stepped into what can I or how can I, what things can be different when in my space. I mean, I'm not going to be one that's, going to be yelling. I mean, even my own mission statement, my own personal mission statement is I create a world where those labeled disadvantaged, come alive through faith, hope, and love. So that's my whole mantra. Yeah, if you will. So if there's a connection where there's a gap of what the haves and have-nots in your world, and you cross my path, it's going to be turned in this spot. It's going to be some tea, it's going to be some water, it's going to be bus pass, it's going to be whatever, or it's just going to be a great conversation so that you're like, man, I got to get back over that way because, man, it felt better over that way. And maybe in that space, whatever it feels better at, you then turn the corner without anything I did, but you just have a space where the small can be cleared up and you recognize your own value and worth in that space. So I think that's how all of that kind of piles together, that sense of not going to be that type of person like my dad was, recognizing this faith got to be tangible and real and edible and grimy, and yet transferable to life, you know what I mean? And not doing stuff at people and with them. And so from jobs I had working, I was always going to be that person that was going to be not. I mean, at one point I was the turn up boy. I was going to be at the club, turn up, right, and it was like I got tired of that part. But just going to be a space where you're going to be alive with me.
For sure.
Yeah.
And do you have children?
Yeah, I got 2.
And so
no, 3. We got 3. I thought you were talking about my sister. Yeah, I have 3.
Okay.
They're all adult. They're all adult.
Yeah, and so that healing had to have come from having your children, right? So like the feeling that you got when your father got angry and hit you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had to have made that change as an adult. Like, I am going to stop this from happening to my children, so my children never have to experience that.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of the person who I grew to be in faith, and recognizing that that's where that healing can take place for me, then to be aware when that stuff comes up, who and how I can go to get it balanced. So, never going off on the kids about stuff when I was angry. So let me just say, y'all sit right here for a second. Let me talk to your mom. Let me, this is not a good choice you made, but I'm going to come back in a much more balanced way versus like going off and anything else like that, calling them out their names. None of that they experienced in that way. It was just a straightforward conversation. And, if things got a heated exchange, it was still going to be respectful, and given with love in that way. So yeah, that example of their unconditional love as a kid, as well as that relationship was bionically authentic, with me and God in that way too.
No, yeah. I mean, I have that same experience. Like, my mother raised me in Little Village. And so there's a sense of, I got hit a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot. and I don't know if I was like necessarily, maybe I was mischievous, but, we contend with it, or I've contended with it by saying like, I might have been a gangbanger. I might have made like silly choices growing up on the boulevard, because I grew up on Marshall Boulevard.
Mm.
And so, that's the borderline between two gangs. And so it was like violence was in front of my house,
right,
literally.
Yeah.
And so you would hear the whistles,
mm-hmm,
and then all of a sudden boys from across the way would come out. The guys from my side would come out, and it was like a football field on both sides, that they would just be like running around and shooting each other on.
Right.
And so, when you were playing soccer, you figured out like either you went in or you looked at what was happening and potentially become a victim to that.
Right.
And so it was just like, let me get my ball, let me go inside.
Right.
But my mom was very heavy-handed with me. Yeah. And so, going to therapy and like coming to terms with it, and like therapists telling me like, you got physically abused. And I was just like, I always thought like in my head that my mom was doing something to keep me out of that, Right. And so that's how I contended with it. But as a parent, I made a decision that I was never going to physically hit my children,
mm-hmm,
and that we were going to deal with disappointments and things in a different way. And in that, I'm healing myself and hopefully like breaking that vicious cycle of like abuse that happens from generation to generation to generation, because we just learn it from our parents.
Yeah. I mean, I would much rather my dad hit me at times than to cuss me out. Because sometimes, stupid as motherfucker was like my middle name. So growing up, having that to be, you stupid, man, you just like a little bitch. And those recordings in your head, oftentimes are tapes played, later on in life, and then you do mess up, make a wrong decision, and that's what you hear, right? So when it came down to it, it's like, man, why am I still fighting this at 20 and 30 and 40? Being able to have that tape recognized and erasing that tape so that it's not affecting my day to day. There are things come up, and now I have understanding of what they are and know how to at least process them to the degree that it's not gonna take me out for that day. So there are things that you have to grow to learn where that stuff comes from. Because sometimes our behaviors will reflect that wound. Yes. And if that wound is not being transformed, you'll transfer it. And if you have an awareness of it, then you can stop before you say something, open your mouth, do something, and process that. And having to have some right people around you to kind of walk you through that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how do you process that negative self-talk now? And like, because you get triggered, right? Like a kid that we knew growing up in elementary school. And, back in the day we were playing at Cappy's. Cappy's was like a place that had the video games. They had Street Fighter. Mm-hmm. And you knew that you never called this kid stupid. Mm. Because when you called this kid stupid, no matter what happened, he was just going to snap off and like beat you up.
Wow.
Or like try to beat you up, right? And so we were all playing Street Fighter at Cappy's, and somebody didn't know that and was like, you stupid. And we were all like, uh-oh.
Oh, wow. It's over with.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it became like a hold this guy back, and he started crying and was like,
yeah.
And he would get triggered because when he heard that, he would see his father or his parents and how they were treating him. It's like, for me, in my identity as being a brown Mexican, like everything that's outside of you tells you that you are less than. Mm-hmm. You watch the radio or the soap operas,
right?
In Spanish, the people who are serving are my complexion. The people who own the house look like white people.
Right. When we went to Veracruz and Jalapa to look at the African presence in Mexico with about 20 kids, and we were bugging because the signs of advertising, whatever is that, this a white guy or is this a Mexican? Like, what are we looking at? Why aren't the Mexicans represented themselves on these signs? These advertisers got to say, we need the most palest Mexican. It was my first time recognizing that colorism in that context. It's like you want to go there and be like, hey, this is how you do it. Everybody's in it. Everybody's respecting the complexions, and that's not an issue. We all reckon. Wait a minute, the sign is. I couldn't have the blonde Mexican woman. Is that a white lady? It was just.
Yeah, we have our own white people,
right?
You know what I'm saying, and they rule over the country, right? And so it's just like growing up in that. When you're growing up, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and you have to come to terms with the type of person that you are, and find beauty within you.
Yeah.
And so, my question was like, how did you find that beauty within yourself?
Yeah, I think my mom really grounded me. She was there for me, a sounding board. And why does Dad do this? And she would walk me through what she understood. He was verbally abusive to her. I don't think he ever touched her in that way. But in her effort to stay and endure it while we were there, I think, and then I think after we got married, 85, about a year or so later, they got divorced, but the grounding of her, keeping me grounded in that space. Sports did a lot in that way to take out the anger and knocking somebody out in football or whatever the case might be. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Catch a
boxing,
pass.
Man. Yeah.
Right.
You're gonna catch why I'm mad right now.
Right. So all of those other kind of physical realities, I think spiritually was an evolving deal. Some things that grounded you. You didn't know what it was or where it came from, and music, man. I think music, hip hop, was able to kind of resonate with what I was feeling and going through, and so that was like, okay, yeah, this is exactly how I feel, and that give you some balance when you're by yourself, you're out and about, because of what somebody else is rapping about.
Yeah, I want to get to that hip hop, but before we move on to that chapter, like I just wanted to close out the young part of you.
Yeah.
What would you say to your young self if you could go back in time and like whisper something in the ear of your little you?
Yeah, I would say that your worth is not found in his words. Your worth is not found in his words, and be welcome yourself, to yourself, allowing the effort to fit into the black world, to the white world, to the biracial world. Leave that alone. Welcome your worth in those space. Yeah.
Man, for sure.
Yeah.
Amen. Right.
Right.
There were decisions that you needed to make in life, right? Where you were just like, I'm going to take my life in this direction, the forks in the road, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to pivot. What was the most significant pivot that you needed to make as far as like, I need to make this decision. I'm going to, like, for me, it was like not teaching. That was a huge pivot in my life because I had seen myself as a teacher for the rest of my life. And then I didn't.
Right.
And then I was like, yo, the world is bigger.
Right.
And so, when I was growing up, it was just like my friends were all becoming teachers. I was from the hood.
Right.
I was already working in a museum in an education department. I worked in a couple museums in the education department. So it was just like I was in front of kids all the time.
Right.
Talking about artwork and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, it's just like an easy transition. Let's just do that.
Right.
And so you found yourself, or I found myself in a place where I was just like, I kind of followed the crowd to get here because everybody from the hood, the way that they were getting in a better place,
yeah,
where they weren't struggling with poverty,
yeah,
was by going to school and becoming a teacher. But there was also that part of me that was like, but you wanted to be an artist your whole life.
Right.
And so, I was teaching more than I was practicing.
Okay.
And so there was a certain point where I had to be like, yo, I'm going to focus on this.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any of those moments with you?
I think that, recognizing that, hey, I'm at this all-white Catholic high school, and whoever's going to accept me, I'm in my junior year, it's just going to accept me, man. This is how I'm going to be. There were some nerdy kind of guys, they play on a football team, and they were just nerds, but some kind of way they connected with me. When I mean nerds, what I mean is that they made sure that they didn't want to fit into nobody else's pattern at the school.
Yeah.
As much as they were like even rebellious with it. So if it means we're all going to sit in the right, we're going to sit in the left just because this is stupid. And so I was like, all right. And they just hung with me because I was odd, I was black, I was ostracized. And whatever they knew in different circles that white folks is talking, that they, fought on that behalf. So that started to enable me, okay, I don't got to fight everybody, and they know I'm going to fight you, or if it came down to something going crazy, so they kind of other folks kind of pushed back. And so I just kind of went with them, and they accepted me like where I was at, and they're all brilliant in their own way, and academically and everything else like that. But that was a turning point for me where I'm gonna accept me for me. And I'm gonna walk with those who are willing to be with me in those spaces. That was a unique thing, especially in this all-white school.
Yeah.
And folks accepted me in that space, and then making decisions about my own safety with females in that school to go to prom or not to prom. I mean, so many dances I went on just by myself and my guys, and we just kicked it, and then we left after that or whatever. Right? That was not necessarily as welcome because everybody was trying to date up with somebody, booed up. I think, having to have the choice to, get married. I was 21, my wife was 19, while everybody else was still trying to kick it and find themselves in some regards too. When I was in college, we met in college. And so Kim accepted me just like I was, no matter how, again, just like junior in high school, I'm still that dude. I'm not as smooth as how they catch me. I ain't got no
Yeah.
car. You know what I mean? I ain't thinking about making money. I'm thinking about doing social work. So it was all these kind of things that, like, whoever's going to be with me, this is how I'm going to be. And she did. So that was, and I didn't have all the wherewithal of what marriage was like. You know, I saw an example of my parents while I was there, and not necessarily saying that was always the best, but I knew that you fought it through, you stayed through. And so, you know, that was a fork in the road in that space. And I think the last one was like, I'm going to serve God in a way that's different than what people may experience or know, because my experiences with God in that space, and maybe I never got it that way. And so I'm feeling that this is the way I am. So I want to give it to those folks who don't and never connect with God in that space, which is odd for traditional church settings, or, you know, especially in the African-American context. You know, it's you know, the style of it is different and everything else like that. And so I didn't care about that as much as I cared about loving on this young person in this space. So those things that are three forks, I think, that defined a little bit of my journey in this space.
Yeah, and for me, one of those things that provided, like you were talking about going to the left and everybody going to the right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was hip hop.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I went to school in '94, graduated in '99.
Okay.
And so it was just like
Bad Boy era, all that.
No, well, yeah, there was a Bad Boy going on, but I was like, you know, we were like Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
You know, The Roots.
Right.
Black Moon.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like Helter Skelter.
Poor Righteous Teachers.
Right? KRS-One. Like these were all people that we were listening to. And so even in the hip hop community, we were like, we're on the left.
Mortal Technique.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We were just like, we're over here.
Right.
Like we're
true to this work.
Yeah. We're real disciples of this hip hop
no
thing.
doubt.
You know what I'm saying? With the Jan Sport backpack, the hat with the back, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Chilling with the
Snapback.
Timberlands, going all the way to the Taste of Whitney Young, or to Lane Tech, to like Battle Cats and stuff like that. So it was just like I was like for real about it.
right.
You know? And so I was always on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went to school, nobody was on that.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, I'm not trying to hang with y'all because y'all
Right.
ain't really on this.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go where people are
Your tribe
going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so hip hop provided that for me.
Right.
You mentioned hip hop.
Yeah.
Like, how did hip hop intertwine into your life?
Man, hip hop, you know, in the era where I was growing up was coming in, right? And so you had the from Curtis Blow to Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5 with Don't Push Me, I'm Close to the Edge, and The Message.
Yeah.
As KRS-One was coming through, man, the man was homeless when he was rocking The Bridge Is Over. The man was homeless
Boogie Down.
on the subway while he's hearing his own song play on the radio. You know what I mean? So there was, you know, hip hop is who you are, right? Rap is what you do. And so in the context of the culture defining, yeah, you okay, man, you good. Like this is you live in an authentic space. You don't gotta be this other kind of world in that context, right? So whether it was Crush Groove, or whether it was Breakin', or whether it was
Beat Street,
the classic, you know, that you know, it was written by a dude in Oak Park, Illinois.
No, I didn't know that.
We had him come out and break down the movie with some breakers, because he came with his son. He was like, yo, I didn't know that this was even still a thing. Are you serious, man? You created...
Wait, he didn't know?
Dude, he did this movie in New York with some friends, and you know, that's one of the most purest b-boy and graffiti. That's the more purest hip hop.
Well, it's the most entertaining, right? Because you got what do you call it? Wild Style.
Classic, Fab Five Freddy.
But they cannot act, dude.
Oh, I
so
know.
like it's just like it's like nails on a screechy board, where you're just like, okay, I see Lee, I see all these people, I see Rocksteady, right? That's dope,
right?
Fab Five Freddy,
yep.
But it's just like.
I got the VHS of that joint. I just kept it just for that same reason.
Yeah.
But it was, so he came out and our breakers was breaking, and they were breaking out and had a little panel discussion. We watched the movie from some cats who haven't seen it before, but just to see that culture in that way. So I think for me, as natural as hip hop was coming into the scene, you know, as it started, you know, Sedgwick and Cedar and the reality of a culture. Disco was leaving, right? Disco was fading out, and Muggs was like, you know, hey, we got a voice here, especially with Robert Moses, who destroyed all of the Bronx, and people moved out, and it was just a black hole, this urban renovation stuff that was happening. Folks needed a voice. So I'm in the hood needing a voice, and these monks were speaking to me. I was like, you know, from KRS-One, overseer, officer, you know what I mean? Just real stuff like, dang, that's a bridge, doc. And really feeling the nourishment of my soul. I mean, I'm hooping, whether it's something that was foul or something crazy, whether it's the Ghetto Boys or whoever it might be, just to create a balance in my head that, okay, I'm not crazy right here. This is what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm experiencing. Even now, growing up, I mean, I wrote a book called The Hip Hop Church to help the church understand the culture, but the reality of artists who are saying something, right? KRS-One said, which I love, on the song "The Classic" it's him, it's Nas, Kanye's on it, which is like, I don't know, Kanye's on it because you got classic MCs on it. You got Rakim, where he says, rappers rap for what's mostly illegal. MCs rap to uplift their people, and it's in that space of artists that were in that particular zone that were uplifting me and recognizing I do count, even though I'm in the projects, I'm in the hood. This is, I ain't got no money. I'm going to a white Catholic school. I ain't got no money to go to college. I'm in school, but it ain't making sense because I didn't have, my mom went to school later. But in the context, she went to Roosevelt and she went to school. But it was like I didn't have my own little pattern of that space. So it just fed me, man. And then the streets, trying to be in the streets, out the streets, trying to be in the club life. But it was a space that gave me, defined my identity in that space. That I'm okay, what I'm going through, and trying to find the right artist that would spit that out. So I mentioned like Immortal Technique. That man. You need a whole dictionary as he's rapping, man. His stuff is just crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was just like one of the incredible things that hip hop did for me was it got me to see a bigger world, where it was just like when you were going to the jam, it was just like,
right.
You were dope b-boy, you were dope b-boy. It didn't matter what you were, where you came from.
Right.
And so people gave you props if you snapped off and you were just like, yo, if you're an MC, I used to go to the Subterranean.
Oh, Sub T.
Got a fake ID when I was like 18 because I was dating an older girl. But
yeah,
I got to go in and Rex was the one that was like hosting it at that time. And it was just like, yo, I was doing it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just like, it was dope to see and be accepted in different places.
Right.
The one thing that moms hated the fact that I was staying up all night. And she was just like, yo, you come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. You come home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'm not feeling that. So I had to contend with that when I got home. But you're right. I had this feeling of like, these are prophets in a sense.
Yeah.
These are people who are talking about my way of life.
Right.
Are validating me as a person when everything else is not validating me.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Right.
They're saying we exist and we are worth.
Right.
We are intelligent people, and we got another swag, and we don't want to be part of your club. True. We're gonna do our own thing.
Right. It gave that voice to the voiceless. That when even how hip hop was birthed in that space, like Muggs were. Kool Herc. I had a chance to meet him at the airport one time, which is in line. I said, "You Kool Herc?" He said, "I've been spotted," or whatever. And we took a picture together. But he was like, just bringing them big old huge speakers in the little park clubs, when they call them Hercules. That's where Herc came from, right? And bringing them boys in there, and then putting the tape in the joint. And so it just said, "Hey, Heron was jumping off, dope was. We're going to exist. We're going to let you know that we exist, and organically from a place of pain, right? From a place of disinvestment, from a place of neighborhoods being just destroyed. We're going to let you know we're here." And it's in that particular corner, that little piece right there that hip hop flourishes at, right? You know, roads that grow through concrete kind of ideology, and that reality of finding a way gradually, right, after Sugar Hill Gang, whatever, to make money, but didn't necessarily have all the wherewithal to know how to control that narrative versus it being like, you know, dumped on you to make us some money, right? There's I think a divorce.
Yeah, like the corporate.
Yeah,
the difference between corporate and the fact that it was like this cool vibe that was happening, that was bubbling up from the underground,
right?
Where it was just like the sound culture, the Jamaican sound culture,
of
like having the big speakers and doing your thing,
and the organicness of how music was. You know, how one DJ would turn the lights off when he was done, another would come, or when he was spinning, another would turn the lights on, get his records together, and they kind of flip flop back up. Just that we're gonna make it work. We got $1. We're gonna make $1 out of 15 cents. We're gonna make this work. That is hip hop, right? And in the midst of that, messages come from. Some messages ain't got nothing to do with consciousness at all. They just fun stuff to listen to, right? They just, man, that was funny. That was hilarious. You know, children's story with Slick Rick or Cinderfella, Dana Dane, or something that's old school in that context. LL Cool J, but things that resonated with you. You know, Pac really brought a lot of awareness in some spaces like that, and then some dope underground cats that nobody really heard of that much in Chicago. Even I Am Oscar Marad, man, he used to be a
all natural.
Yeah, they would close.
Well, the whole All Natural crew is dope.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Like we were this close to becoming all natural.
Really. Prime Meridian was with them.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Prime Meridian. It was like Amara, Tomby Nimble.
Ooh.
Right, like Cap D.
Cap D.
When you talk about 2003, right?
No,
when you started gathering people into hip hop and like melding, you know, the word. How did you do that, and where did that come from? So, and what was that experience like?
So all my life, again, this difference than everybody. You know, when doing youth ministry, I accepted this call to ministry in youth ministries in 87 in Kansas City, and started doing stuff that was in juvenile detention centers, youth prisons, grabbing cats, doing stuff that, you know, y'all need a job. Let's go all day long. We're going to go to every place and put in a job till 8:00 tonight. We're going to eat and take a break and go. And just real stuff with folks. And I wasn't getting any money. I was working myself at other places. And so I say that was to other people, you different. That's different than a regular preacher doing this. Like, we should be doing human stuff that we need. Toilet paper. Let's go get some toilet paper. And it's like pray for the toilet paper. You know, let's just pray with our feet. And so with that, hip hop was already in me. As we in the car, we bumping something. Yeah, that was cool. It wasn't maybe a Christian MC at that time, but the verses were true though. The verse, that was truth right there. So we rocking that. And so as it was kind of in me, and I was doing this crazy stuff with hip hop and these other places, or at the church I was at in Kansas City, you know, Lawndale Church called me to come to Kansas City in 93. I came there in 94, moved to Chicago, and brought that same kind of movement there. Now, my mom's from Chicago, so it was already like I felt like home already, and I could spread my wings even further than Kansas City's slow behind. They just super slow, like ancient slow sometime to me. Mm-hmm. I felt like, y'all heard of computers? It was just weird, that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So as I'm rocking with young people, of course, music is 8 hours a day in their head, whether it's, you know, whether it was the Walkman or the daggum, Mac had that little joint where you get
the mini disc, or
all the music was in. It was in the
the MP3 player.
MP3 joint, man. Moms were trying to get more memory on them boys.
Yeah,
whatever they was listening to, and you know, hip hop evolves, right? Hip hop is always moving. You know, Mos Def said you're gonna ask, you know, black on both sides, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna ask me, you know, how hip hop is going, how you doing, right? And so you have to stay relevant in that space. And so as other artists who are coming with some real heat in what I call Christ-centered artists, because you can be a Christ-centered artist and never use a Bible verse at all. It's like, yo, that's some truth right there, you know? We should love X, Y, and Z. That's great. So now people may listen to you because of their disdain towards the Bible, disdain towards church or God, but they resonate with something with that piece. So we had some artists that were coming up that way. Some artists are super cheesy, and they may have been cheesy for that era because their cadence was that way, right? We're gonna do the Bible. We're gonna do the Bible rap, and then the Bible. You're like, yo, and then
like Fat Boys.
Yeah, right. And that was okay for that time and that era, and then it evolves. And so finding artists that cats could resonate with, who was talking about the streets, who were grimy. There was a group called Gospel Gangsters, man. They was just so cold. They was just like, they were coming with it. And so we had a couple of different hip hop events with some of these big national recognized artists, right? And they was Gospel Gangsters, is this, is that, as Christian artists. Everybody was like, what? They saying, they talking, I'm in real, you know? And they was like, shots rain like thunder. How do I keep from going under? It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder, will I ever amount to anything good? I mean, they talking about real hurt. Man, it was beautiful. And so we'd have every 6 months or so, we'd have a concert. And then the kids said, yo, where can we do this where can we have concerts on every weekend? I'm like, all right, let's think. That's a lot of money. So we just began to think through, how can we engage in the arts and do this on a regular basis? And so we got with some young people and said, what kind of a place would you want to invite your friends to that's not like any place? If you was a Martian, you came here and be like, yo, you got to come to this. So they said, it's got to be this, got to have this. So we had 2 DJs. So it was already in me, right? Hip hop is like who you are. So like you can recognize hip hop and, you can recognize, a rapper, you can recognize the difference. And so you're like, okay, we got to have it where we had this definition of creativity, right? Where you're making the familiar strange, where you've seen a Coca-Cola can before, but you never saw one with your name on it. So now you're driving all over the city to try to find Jesus on these Coca-Cola cans, right? Yeah. So in the sense that, how can we make this strange? So you've been to church, but you ain't been to it like this. And all of a sudden this DJ's rocking. It's a girl on a video. Because hip hop always is it's reciprocal. You can't just have a spot and be stale in that spot. So
yeah, you can't just stand there and
so that's church. Church, as you said, it's more sender friendly, right?
Yeah.
Hip hop is sender receiver friendly. So, Brenda's got a baby. So you're going, oh man, I recognize my cousin, Joe, that's real. So it's going to be, even if you didn't at the concert, it's going to be sender and receiver. So that's how we had to lay it out. Young people, they designed it. They laid it out. Man, we had 400 or 500 kids coming out every first Saturday of the month from, October 4th of 2003, the first service. It was like, yo, kids come from everywhere. We weren't expecting it. We just knew we had to do this. And the kids was involved. They was dancing, they was speaking, they was talking. I would preach 15-minute type of thing. And then you think about it. And then we had mad fellowship afterwards. Because that's the thing, right? You get what you get in that moment, whether you feeling it or you're not, or it's entertaining or it resonates. But then afterwards, Muggs is there from, we done it 9, they did till like midnight. Like, yo, I got to go home. So we did that from, 2003 to 2016. And it kind of like ebbed and flowed. For a couple of years, like 4 years, it was 400 or 500 kids on that first Saturday. And then the second Saturday would be less and less and less. So we said, well, maybe it's not every Saturday. Maybe that's not the thing. Maybe just do one. So gradually, it dwindled down to try to have it every Saturday. So we said, well, maybe we need to stop. Maybe this is not, this is as far as God's going to be. I ain't trying to force something to happen. And then I didn't want to whitewash it with churchianity kind of stuff. Yeah. We had young people come through, man, especially when doing this work with Phenom and others at Social Justice High School who were poets. A young woman named Zenny, who's like a daughter to me. And she said, like,
she's dope, man.
Yeah, Zenny's cold. And so she had this poem she wanted to do for Christmas, like I hate Christmas, but she didn't want to do it in church. I said, no, I hate Christmas too. Christmas sucks. This is the worst time ever. So she came, and that was a tipping point for her to be like, yo, I'm accepted in this space and this is me. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, man. And so just being able to be real to the culture and real to this authentic faith that maybe nobody has ever seen or really touched before, that's happened to me. And so that's how it all kind of evolved. And from that, kids were like, where can we do the arts at every day? And that's when we bought this fire station in 2007, formed a nonprofit in 2006, and keep it moving to this day.
And I know that you were friends with Pastor Vic.
Oh yeah, Pastor Vic, my man. Yeah.
Like do you have any stories about him? Like what do you remember about him, or what was it like to work together? Because Pastor Vic was also on that level, not
definitely.
Necessarily on the hip hop level.
No, but he was like real. Yes,
like we're gonna be real. I'm gonna be real with you.
Right.
We would sit back and talk about how Jesus was a revolutionary.
Right.
Be like, yo, and it was the first time that somebody in that place was recognizing the fact that Jesus was a person that was thinking outside the box and was like, no, I ain't going with it.
Right.
How were your interactions with Pastor Vic, or like in general? Yeah,
so I was a youth pastor at Lawndale Community Church, and in those kind of days, early 90s, it's like in Lawndale especially, like nobody was like doing full-time youth ministry stuff. So if there's no water in the space. And that person got water. Everybody's like, yo, there's water over that way. Not that everybody was coming to the church youth mission, but it's like good people will find good people. Is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah,
you know, so we were doing.
You feel energy. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
just like,
So we got to connect with Pastor Vic, especially when they got that big, huge building. I don't know. Noel Castellanos was involved in some of that, and they.
the old Masonic Lodge.
Yeah, they got that big building, and but man, Pastor Vic was always real. I mean, always called me to come together. Phil, can you bring some kids over here for X, Y, and Z? We did some black and brown things together. We did guys labeled as gangbanger street organizations who could come to the Firehouse, and then black and brown, and then some of them would go to the legal center, right, and some would go to Little Village. But it was always a comfortable, real, authentic space with Pastor Vic. There's no real stories I have. I just have great memories of us talking and being mad at the church and being mad at the fact that why aren't more people stepping up in spaces? Why aren't more people listening to the community? How can we guide and direct the community? How can we come together more? And, just being in a space where you could be at peace because you're going to be real, he's going to be real, and there's no shade in it at all. I think and he's got tons of disciples who followed his tracks, like the way in which he flowed, you know what I mean? And being able to have more of that, where that is a new norm of kind of leading churches and leading people, you know what I'm saying? Opposite being like an anomaly. Like that should not be an anomaly. It should be that way. And I know when we would talk about stuff downtown and, it was mad about why aren't things happening, differently downtown. I would just say, Vic, we got to do what we do here. The neighborhood is our downtown. This is what we do. And it's always the people always have the power. And it's always that element of there's few people helping people have the power. Like we can make this government do what it's got to do if we just said, you know what, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to stop this until, and the people have the power in that space. And yet, trying to get others, like a Pastor Vic would get however many others, try to get several others to think that way. And I know he would just be tired that the fight seems like
it's never ending.
Yeah, never ending, and you're alone in the midst of it all, right? Had mad love. He went on a men's retreat called the Crucible Project, man, and came back and really, really empowered his heart and life, freed him up in some spaces in that way. But when real recognize real.
Yeah, he told me about the Crucible. I don't know if I told you this story, but I was going through some, really hard time, my all-time rock bottom, right? And I was just like, yo, like I need to really examine what's going on and like come to peace. And he was just like, Jesus, I know you're not really religious, but I've gone to retreats before. If you really trying to work on yourself, then go to this Crucible retreat.
Powerful.
And he was just like, go to the Crucible retreat, but you have to go, y te tienes que desnudar, which means that you have to get naked.
Yeah.
Like you have to go there and be 100% real. You're going to see people that are going to go there and they're going to fake the funk and they're going to pretend like nothing's wrong.
Right.
And they're going to be working on things outside, trying to work on things without being real about it. He was like, if you go in there and you real, he's like, I've gone to these retreats where like people are fake and like they're all trying to like, maneuver in certain spaces. It's just like you go in there, you be real, you're gonna come out a changed person.
Yeah.
And so I went, and the interesting part was that when he told me about the retreat, he was just like, just make sure you bring whatever they tell you to bring. I was just like, what you mean, Pastor Vic? He's like, well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but just know that somebody that I came with didn't bring something that they were supposed to bring, and they got blasted. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, just make sure that when you say you're going to do something, that you do it.
Right.
Because everybody's depending on it.
Right.
And so it was definitely like a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And Hannah Houston is one of my, one of my wife's best friends.
Oh man, I love Hannah. Yeah, she's in Texas herself.
No, she's
right?
in
Florida?
Georgia.
In Georgia. Okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so she got married and then moved to Georgia.
Yeah.
And I never knew this connection.
Crazy.
And then I was just like, yo, I've seen that dude on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? How did you get together with Mr. Houston? What's his name?
Greg
Houston.
Yeah.
And like come to this urban version of this crucible. And what is it for people that don't know that are interested in joining that?
So I was at my rock bottom, all these wounds from my dad. I didn't know where it was coming from. And I'm trying to raise money and trying to ask white folks for money, trying to do the church route, big wealthy churches. Can you help us? And they didn't understand what we tried to do. And I didn't understand how to raise money because I did direct work with folks. And I'm like, I got to learn a new language. I'm trying to tell you everything all at one time that we do at the Firehouse. And you weren't giving me any kind of money, but you give them a bunch of money. What's the difference? And they're white doing it. Is that the only issue? So going through all that rejection that I felt as a kid, but didn't know that was what was coming up for me, that my shadow is that I'm not good enough, right? And so that was coming up for me. I didn't know that language at that time. So I've known Greg for a bunch of years, and I knew about these retreats. I said, this is white folks. This is some white folk retreat stuff, and churchianity, kind of a bunch of church. You're gonna be in there preaching. I don't need no preaching. I'm a preacher. I know how to do that. No, and so, 4 or 5 years of him talking to me about going, and then I went with a group of brothers as a crucible. What I love about it is that it's a deeply rooted men's weekend. It's a deeply rooted women's weekend, but it's all about you getting the deliverance, the transformation that you put in.
Yeah,
it ain't about that was a cute message. That was a great phrase. I'm gonna own that phrase. Nah. What was the physical action steps and emotional and mental steps that you took place for that awareness? And that is the work that they won't let you go from. And in so doing, they have these soul groups afterwards. So we would meet. I met with this soul group I still meet with them right now every first, second, and third Friday of the month. And we meet 7 to 8:30 in the morning. We talk about everything. We go in. So I did that, and these guys said, okay, you got to commit to going one of these weekends. If you're going to be a part of the soul group, we can't talk to you about everything that the weekend entails, but we can go through some processes with you.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to disclose too much. I was like, yo, you talk about it.
Yeah. It's not about stuff being secret, some kind of fraternal thing as much as it is.
It's about being in the presence of what's happening. And if you already know what's going to happen, then there might not be enough change, or like the change that you can have if you're surprised.
I can't tell you the middle of a movie without, oh man, he jumped off the cliff.
Yeah.
And that was the coldest part. I don't get the move. What do you mean? So, but every man's work is, one man's work is every man's work is what we say, right? And so I going that weekend, man, in 2011 changed my life. And I was like, I got to bring this back to my neighborhood. So in 2012, we started getting as many black men as we could to go on a weekend, Latino men, everybody. In 2013, we started our first urban weekend. So I helped to start that. So we would do 2 a year, and we try to do more than that as much as men can afford it to go, right? Because it's hard to get brothers, hard for me to go. It took me 5 years, so it is a life gut-wrenching, social, emotional, it just cuts you open, but then puts you back together emotionally. But you are the one who do the work. You put in what you're going to get out of it, right? And it's a Friday night all day, Saturday, and come back Sunday afternoon. But they carry over. They have second level weekends, one on sexuality, one on leadership. What is your dark side of leadership? What is your golden side of leadership? And then mission, like what's your life's mission? And so they really stick with you so that you are doing the work, continually doing the work, right?
And asking yourself the right questions.
Yeah. And knowing that the journey continues, right? It's not just done in one and done. So going on those weekends, the two men that married my daughter, they had to go on a weekend before I would walk down the aisle with my daughter. It's that people I'm doing marriage counseling with, they got to go on a weekend before I do as we're doing the marriage counseling. It's that serious.
So every person that married your
the two men, my daughters,
they had to go through the crucible.
Yeah,
you're like, you got to go.
Yeah, I'm not walking down the aisle, and so your fiance gonna sweat you about it because I'm gonna stay here.
Wow,
it was that serious because I won't be in the household 5 years when y'all married, but the stuff that you've learned, if you own it, you'll still be there. And and stuff comes up. You and all three of us as men, who you're married to my daughter, we can talk about it in a real way. Yeah. We can say, hey man, that's your shadow speaking, Doc. That you gotta love that part of yourself that is not that you're gonna hide, repress, and deny. And so I think even more so in the hood, there's so much stuff that we pack, man. So much stuff we pack in from how we grew up and what we face, and we don't.
Well, you have to have a mask, right?
Yeah.
So the mask is like you got to have that hard look.
Yeah.
And you can't let people know that you're vulnerable or that you're growing or that you're learning anything
Right.
because you're gonna get picked on.
Yeah.
And so you just got to keep it there. And like you're saying, going to the retreat is like ripping that off.
Right.
And being like, yo, I'm a real person.
Yeah. And that stuff transfers on other people. Like, again, if it's not being transformed, it's going to transfer. And so you wonder, you know, why everybody's around you is in this way, because you transferred all that onto them, you know, indirectly or directly, how you function, how you've lived. And so having the recognition that I need to own that. Ayamas went on a retreat.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, Ayamas, man, good brother. I love Ayo, man. So there is this awareness that that you can't get from church. You can't get it. Then once you get that, then you can go back into those settings, real, uncut, and authentic. You know, there's probably been over more than 500 men or so from the city, from the hood, that have gone through. You know, we've had some guys who are former vice lords who gone through and just impacted their life in a powerful way. So we have, you know, something in our life as I think even more so, and men and women, right? That we, I won't say get stuck, but it's a point where there's something else going on. I can't define what it is, and I keep looping. And I think the crucible is one way to break some of that up. The work continues, right? But it's one of those ways where it's like, okay, I see this now, where these voices come from, and what things I can recognize to move differently. So, Pastor Vic went, man, Mufasa. Ooh.
That was his name?
Yeah, Mufasa. Ooh.
Yeah,
So
okay.
It was cold when he would say it. We all just out, ooh. It was powerful, man. Yeah, it was awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. He was a good brother. I mean, that was one of the moments that, like, I was like, yo, I'm going to make this change, you know? One of the things that I decided to do was to stop drinking alcohol. And so...
Awesome, yeah.
You know, we talked about this off camera, but you know, I've been sober for 8 years.
Yeah.
Just celebrated 8 years,
Yeah,
and so in the program, those conversations are the type of conversations that we have in the program
on a normal basis, and ain't nobody judging nobody. Everybody been in that spot. That's what I'm saying. And so, what if we could do it way before a brother gets to that point, or a sister in their life? By a weekend like that just jars you loose. There's even a crucible for men with addictions. Yeah. It's a whole group of brothers, it's almost like if you're not in an AA or an NA, it's almost like you can still go, but that's the group that's saying you gotta, the exercise and the process complement that level of life and unpack. It's powerful, man. Another brother started that whole deal, and I don't even know if there's a scripture verse even given in that context, but it's so real and uncut. I mean, there's another one for people who aren't concerned about God, or not concerned about God, but God is not their priority in it. That it's called Mankind Project, and they go deeper in some spaces that way too. You know, but that's kind of needed. I mean, so knowing Pastor Vic was already real enough and super real in his work. And yet some of the frustrations that he struggled with trying to make the neighborhood different. I remember we sat and talked about a company in a little village that it's a Mexican-owned company for years, generationally, and the owner was like, hey, I'm about to retire. I want this to stay in the neighborhood. Can y'all look at these books? Because we want y'all to kind of take it over. And Pastor Vic said, Pastor Phil, we're going to help you get that elevator in the firehouse. Because I'm like, man, that'd be great, Vic. How's that going to work now? He said, well, this company, they took the books to the bank. He had the right business people, and they said, man, this company could go this high if they changed a few things and got things more digitally. But he was so embraced by the neighborhood that an owner of a company would come and say, what do you think about this? Could y'all run this? And whatever you want to do with the proceeds, because I want to stay in the neighborhood. That's the kind of love and respect Vic had.
I mean, he walked around the neighborhood, and the boys in the neighborhood would be like, hey, put that away. Pastor Vic is coming.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It would just be like, whoa, like it was like a whole nother level. And it was just like, you know, it when he left, when he passed away, it was like super impactful, because it was just like, yo, who's going to fill those shoes?
Yeah.
Like, the neighborhood nobody messes with anybody that goes to that space.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? The boys might be passing by.
Right.
You could be wearing different gang colors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And be around that church and nobody will mess with you because there was that force field that was created of respect, because he believed you respect the boys will respect you.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? If you pretend like they don't exist and you pretend like they're not part of your community, they're not going to respect you. They're not going to recognize you, but real recognizes real.
Right.
And when you're able to humanize them and be like, yo, I appreciate you and I want you to be better. And I hope that you wouldn't make better decisions, but I still love you.
Right.
And so how do you do that with your pastoring, you know, in North Lawndale?
I mean, it's the same way. I mean, I believe like I create a world that those labeled disadvantaged come alive through faith, hope, and love. So in my world, we wave at people. We say hi to people. We don't just walk by them. We say, man, you good? You need something? I might be able to solve your rent problem, but like, let me try to introduce you to somebody who may be able to have some contact. In other words, there is an intentional effort to find hope. Hope is a dangerous word because folks have been let down by hope, or folks have not sustained that level of hope. But what I mean is our success as human beings is only as successful as those next to us. You know, Jay-Z said it, others have said it. The reality of in my world, I'm going to pull over the car. What's going on, y'all? And I'm going to pull over to the dope boys on the block. I don't care what you do. Man, did you see the game last night? Man, what's your name? And gradually, I mean, the cats would be like, yo, Phil, you got to move on. You got to move on. We're losing money, right? I'm like, I'll be like, well, let's go to breakfast. When can we go to breakfast? All right, let's go tomorrow. Okay, bet. I'm going to pick you up at 8. And then gradually, man, I'm just taking cats. Now, a lot of those guys are on staff at the Firehouse from those earlier days, because I'm not scared of you. I'm not an enemy of yours. I'm going to say, if y'all see you down the block, walking with 30 guys, I'm like, yo, what y'all on, man? Y'all good? Well, slow down. I may try to give some conversation, and if you push me back, I'm gonna be like, yo, man, y'all need to be safe because the cops is all on the prowl in the neighborhood. I'm not going to judge you. It's gonna be, we want to do life together in that space like that, right? And so to me, as a pastor, I got to trust God more than the magical words I have. You know what I mean? The theology that I've studied, the scriptures I may know. I'll be like, you know, Luke 2 and 5. I'm not going to come at you in that context. I'd rather be Luke 2 and 5. I'd rather be it. You know what I mean? And if I can be it, then let God do the mystery of how that intersects with what God is doing in your life in the midst of that. And so that piece right there sometimes is what I mean is uncomfortable for some other churches or other leaders, because they want to make sure that I got this out to you and said this. I feel some sort of accountability to it, like I checked it off the list, and then I'm not compromising my relationship with God because I didn't say this to you. I believe that God is bigger than our magical words. I think doing and being is a lot more significant than the talk that we have, right? And so if we can just be and do what Christ wanted us to do and be, and then let God do the rest of that work. That's not on us in that space. And so not enough of that has happened. Otherwise, you would see a bunch of people walking through the neighborhood. If that was the new thing, and okay, we're going to walk through the neighborhood. Like, I would love to just have jazz. I was talking to our team this year. I would love to have jazz on this corner, hip hop on this corner. But every Thursday, you know, at so-and-so's house, we give them $50 for their electricity. The jazz band going to be there rocking on the porch. Maybe they get an album. Maybe they get a little bucket to put some money in, and that's rocking. So now the block can be kind of chill. On the next block, going to be house music rocking out. What can maybe some hip hop. That's not going to be too crazy with a resident's going to be like, yo, it'll be crazy, but because it could be like turned in a second. But all I'm saying is that when we're able to recognize each other's humanity in that space, man, and that we are all struggling to try to be the best we can be in that space, man. It's in that intersection that we want to join each other in and cry with each other, walk with each other, and laugh and celebrate and make it through that day. As we own that movement of that space, like that is when transformation can really happen.
And one of the things is that, like, Pastor Vic carried that. Mm-hmm. I mean, his famous, I just painted the mural, right? Yeah. His famous slogan was, everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to wash the dishes, right? And so it's just like, everybody wants the credit, but nobody wants to do the work. And so he was about, like, I'm not gonna preach the word to you. I'm gonna be the word.
Right.
And so when I saw you and I saw the work that you were doing and your energy, I was like, this brother's doing that work.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so I respect it.
Yeah, I praise God. I mean, stand on his shoulders with his because it's like, okay, cool. I ain't crazy because Vic is on this, right? It's like that kind of thing because the paradigms that we have to break through are not in that mode. They're whether it's a sermon or whether it's a church or how many people go to all that kind of stuff is what One World is about, right? And maybe or maybe not, it has its place, but it's just one of them things where you have to be true to who you are. That's why I was talking about that fork in the road. This is how I'm going to be, because it was never given to me that way. I never received it, but I know that this is feeding me in the relationship with God. And I know that there's a ton of people out there that been where I've been, but have never really had that touchable faith. There's a cat in the Bible named Thomas. Thomas, they call him Doubting Thomas. Thomas was a regular dude to me. Every kid I've ever read, he was just a realist. Like one time,
Jesus, he's like, I ain't going. Like, right. You got to prove it.
Yeah, exactly, man. They got stoned coming out of Jerusalem. Jesus is like, yeah, we got to go back and heal Lazarus. And Thomas said, man, let's go and die with him. He just a real, like, yo, they was all like, we got to go back. And like, yeah, let's go and die with him. He was someone everybody was thinking. And when he didn't see Jesus, they saw him touch I got to touch him. And when Christ came through and he touched him, Christ didn't even judge him. He said, man, you believe because you can touch. Others can believe they're not. Christ was even smooth, revolutionary kind of context. And so that's, okay, if I can take what he said, how do I apply that to non-judgmental in other situations? This person talking about some crazy stuff. So, man, how does that work out for you in that context, man? Has that been beneficial? That's cool. That's cool. So now we're talking not like you shouldn't and how can you think, no.
Yeah, like I'm on a higher level. I'm in the ivory tower judging you and what you're doing.
Because you don't know what trauma or what background or what backstory that person is coming with from that perspective. And you haven't lived that life. And so, man, we did a Bible study one time called Shit Won't Change Unless You Get Up and Wipe Your Ass from Kendrick Lamar's verse, right?
Yeah.
And basically, you reap what you sow. And man, one of the young cats we serve and love for, like, it was just a random Bible study. Y'all want to study the word for a day? Let's look at this one passage. All right, cool. And just random. And that brother said, man, Phil, you the only MF I'm going to listen to ever about God, man. You the only and he just went in, man, about that. It wasn't something I was asking for. We just been together 7 years talking about, you probably shouldn't hit your girl. Don't you got a daughter? Like, that's probably not a best. You're right. I mean, what if somebody just smacked your daughter in school? You would be heated. You bring the whole block over there. Well, that's what said you're doing to somebody else's daughter. Damn. I didn't show a Bible verse. I didn't say, get thee behind me, Satan, blah, blah, blah. We just talked it through. What about your money? What about your mom? What about your own independence? What about your passion? And over the time, just doing life together and then doing this Bible study, because it was something I just wanted to talk about that was about decisions or something. And so that's where it came about. But it was cool. But I just say that kind of authenticity, sometimes people can be scared to engage in on a real authentic, in a real, transferable way. You just got to trust it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that it's like coming to terms with who you are.
Right.
And like you were talking about your shadows, right?
Yeah.
The negative part of yourself, those traumas that you're trying to get rid of, or not, you're trying to come to terms with.
And love it. And love that part that some folks, I got this bum knee. I'm just going to be mad I'm just going to walk and just be in pain and try to walk straight. Now I'm going to try to walk in a way that makes sense so I don't hurt but I'm going to love my knee. I'm going to love my body. I'm going to find a brace so it can maybe not hurt so bad. That kind of stuff. We have to be emotionally with each other, mentally and spiritually in that same context. Yeah.
How do you deal with the violence that's happening around you? Like, I've always been curious because Pastor Vic knew everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to know everybody, right? And so you see the violence that's happening and how it's affecting people you know and you love and that you care for. How do you compartmentalize that? Or do you, like, it has to be traumatic to like see a young person grow into something necessary. Like for me as a teacher, I used to see people start and they were like real kids. And then by the time they got junior, senior year, you couldn't recognize them because they had put those masks on them
right
to survive. And it was just like, You knew that they were still that young kid that was bright, that was like incredible, that was curious, loved science, loved art, right?
Right.
Like you're still that kid,
Right.
but you have these masks on, and then how do you deal? And then there were situations where students would be murdered, and then the whole community would fall apart,
right?
Where it was like the young kids were now dealing with like death, when it was just like somebody from the other side had died. Now it's like somebody somebody that you love passed away. And how do you deal with that? How do you grapple with that as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I ask myself that every day. It's different every time, different every situation. I think since '87 or so, it's been about 200 young people that I've known or have buried or in our program, and some from Kansas City to Chicago. I think the deal is that on one reality is that nothing's promised, right? And so I've got to not be morbid with it, but I've got to realize, hey, I got you right now in front of me while we're eating this pizza, and I want to experience this moment with you in a way that is life-giving and life-exchanging, so that you get addicted to the life that's you have in you and the life that's happening right now, to not want to be in spaces where that's going to be sucked out of you, right? And so when things happen like that, it's almost brand new every time. There's no way around it, to me. I mean, if you're going to be at this for a while, you need some support that's going to help you, some therapists, some time alone, some people who know you need to go to a hotel and just get in a whirlpool and just disconnect for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Some things that happened with me not too long ago, my wife just took me out and I could just spend some time alone in that space. I think journaling is key, but oftentimes, man, when something happens with a young person I've known, or even I don't know, maybe Roque knows them, and we are all together and our situation happened, it still hurts. We can't be so callous that we're only concerned if somebody's shot. Oh, they dead? They okay? We got to be concerned with the shooting too. That a shooting took place. And then even before that, like, why are y'all so angry at the situation where you feel like you gotta pop some pills, smoke weed, and go back and retaliate? How can we catch you at that point, right? So that we can say, yo, man, this is not where you want to take this to. I mean, being in a space where life is much more valuable, where the valuing of life becomes so easy to get to.
Yeah.
But what happens to me is I've noticed about me in this space is like that. After the tears, I just turn that into some kind of creative discontent, some anger in that spot. You may not see me protesting online or various things, because what Michelangelo said, I protest by creating, right? So I'd much rather create. Okay, we want somebody in every daggum high school and elementary school in North Lawndale advocating with the teachers and kids who are the rah-rah kids, who we can cuff them. How do we get money to do that, to get them in the school? So now we've created that level of attention, right? So we don't know how many lives may have been detoured because somebody said, man, put this camera in your hand, man, let's take some pictures, or let's get on the microphone, or let's paint something. And now that kid may not be the best painter at that time, but maybe like is now talking about what's going on at the crib, or whatever.
Has a different goal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like sees life in a different way.
Yeah. So I think I've just know, and I mean, I'm hurt every time, like I was saying, every time one kid, and I just really discovered this, I think, after a couple of kids had passed away here recently, that the hurt is from all of them, like the very first one. So it has to be a way in which you take care of yourself mentally. You have to be in that space, and there are different ways that happens for different folks. You got to do it in a healthy way, in a way that's gonna. I mean, you could watch movies all day, and maybe there's a time for that. But at the end of that last thing you binged on for 8 episodes, you have to spend some time, solitude and silence, man, where you just be alone with what you're feeling, and allow what you're feeling to come out, however it comes out. Whether you write it, whether you scream it, whether you put it on a microphone, but it is a space where it can't be bottled up. It can't be stuck in there. And then there's other sources that you need. There's therapists and even spiritual directors that can help kind of give you questions to recalibrate in a way. And grieving processes is different for everybody. It's 5 parts of grief, denial and anger and all that you even go back through, opposite of a mom that's obviously going through it, but you go back through in order for you to actually start to heal. But, when it happens so frequently, then you don't know when things happen again if you're on part 3 of grief, because it starts back over again, so you can't get over. But you have to recognize that, own it, and be present with it. And things can happen that you didn't expect to feel this week that you didn't feel last week, and you gotta don't cancel a meeting, cancel whatever, because you gotta deal with that. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you being some superhero because you can handle everything. It's about you being a whole person and healthy, so that whatever space you're serving others in, you can be
present.
Yeah, you can be present, and you're not always going to be in this role for your entire life. Not meaning that, oh, that's a happy thing. What I mean is, you are here for a moment in this work that you do, and the work it's hard in that space. But knowing that at the end of the time, you want to be healthy. At the end of the time of doing whatever you're going to be, you want to be healthy and strong in those spaces. And so, not to pretend that you're healthy and strong, and just be real.
Yeah. Speaking of like the violence, like what do you think, how do you think that the Black and brown community could come together? I mean, it's been like an enigma that has been part of the community, divide our communities, right? How do we get young people or just people in general to like be part of to be part of a whole community?
Yeah. I think that takes when it takes intentionality, right? And you have to do it in a much more organic way. I think that if it's about us hooping with Benny and the guys on 31st Street, or if it's getting guys on 31st Street to hoop over at Shed with our guys, or going to Mason, it has to be something that is a heartfelt initial engagement, whether it's the arts or sports or something where there's no real, I'm not having you come to this meeting because we're going to dialogue about violence in the neighborhood. You're going to be, if you don't know anybody, you're going to shut things down. But if we done stuff together, hooped together, we went to, open mic together, you spit some, your brother spit some, and we all appreciate each other in those spaces, then it becomes, oh no, those are my guys. Those are my people over there, man. That's so-and-so in them because you broke bread, you built something together. That is what I mean by that. It's like my wife and I have date night every Friday night. We're married now 40 years. So it's like we've been doing it for probably 37 of those 40, but it's one of those things where something happens in our life that's hard. We've got enough deposits in our account with each other that we can say, okay, we got to address this hard issue. It's not something that just is out the blue, that we don't know how to talk to each other about that. So that's my thing. If there is a way that we can find those bridges with trusted, foundational people that bring some kids here, we bring some kids there, and it may not be the hardest of the hard kids, but gradually it can get to those kids in such a way where things can be broken down. Boxing could be one of the best ways to do that. I know that Box Out Negativity does this us against everybody boxing match. They did it at Shed Park a couple of times. It was like 500 people out there. Man, it was so beautiful. I got out in the ring, gave one of the belts away or something. Yeah. I was just like, are y'all seeing what's happening right now? We got freaking daggum tacos over here, some chicken wings over here.
It was one Lawndale.
Yeah.
So it was like getting kids from Boxing Out Negativity and then the CYBC, and they were like one team.
Yeah.
And they went against everybody else.
Right. Like, so more of those kinds of things. And then even training. That's how we train together. Now we boxing in the ring together. We talking. I'm calling you your name. You calling me my name. Then we gradually call each other nickname because you're a lefty and I'm calling you southpaw, whatever it might be. Yeah. And now it's like that bond begins to ooze out into a conversation when you're not around. Oh, that's my guy, man. He's from Boxing. He's cool. He's good. He's from 16th Street. Those are my people. What? And now it begins to break. It's not Superman coming in to change everything. It's just those little things on a consistent basis that I think baseball, basketball, whatever it might be. And I'm saying not only just sports. Again, it could be open mic. It could be, we come to a showcase to see somebody rock it out. So, a jam that's going to take place, whatever is going to happen to create that bridge slowly and consistently.
And you were talking about like every Friday night you have a date night with your wife.
Yeah.
Like, how do you so from an outside observer, right?
Yeah.
Hanging out with you, I see you and you're like on 10 all the time. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm there when you're busy
in that space. Yeah.
but it's just like, yo, it's like getting a call, talking to this person. Yo, this is the account. Like, hey, what's going on? Oh, yo, hold on, let me text this person. Like, how do you balance your life? Like, how do you get that peace? I mean, we know that you take time out to be with your wife on Friday, right?
Yeah.
Like, what other things do you do to like?
Yeah, I like to spend, if I can do 3 days a week where I just spend 20 minutes of solitude and silence. Sometimes it can be late at night. I make sure that there's things every day I'm going to do that are going to replenish me. And it could be sitting in the room with my wife while we're watching a show, laughing about something. It could be I'm going to spend some time with some friends on the phone, or even some of our staff who are real good friends with. We're going to spend some time on Saturday together and hang out and talk and laugh. That nourish me and fire me back up again, right, in those spaces. Reading is important to me. Like sometimes it's an audiobook in the car. Music is definitely important, man. Last time that I checked, there was no slut on my rep, right, from Nipsey. It's something that's going to fire me back up. So you've got to find the different combinations that resonate with you. My date night is sacred, so folks don't even ask me to speak on a Friday night because they know it's my date night, Yeah. So there is, and it doesn't got to be an expensive thing. We could just go do a Prince tour on YouTube while we have some dinner at the table while we're watching Prince for 3 hours on YouTube, all the different concerts, and just laughing about whatever, right? And go to a jazz spot. But it's about being intentional. I wasn't intentional 3 years into our marriage about that, but be intentional about this is a sacred space and what that, the nutrients of that space give. Friends, I say friends, music. I mean, my wife, friends, music, books, and solitude really, really have to be that. And if you can do something every 7 weeks where you're doing a staycation, 7 days, 1 day a week, 7 weeks, one staycation, 7 months, maybe out of town, something like that, 7. But having a system that works for you because I don't want to go out of town often when I'm in that space to want to get away, because it's almost like a fantasy, because I'm going to come back to the cold world, right? So I need to have to where I'm going out of town in a good balance where I'm wanting to get away. I need to recharge, but I'm not going there to like everything's going to be fine when I come back. And
it's like the drop off, like caffeine when you got that in a woo or sugar.
Yeah. So I want to go where I'm balanced and I can come back even on a vacation and be able to land good, not be going there and be I need another vacation from the vacation. I need to be able to be in a good spot. So those kind of things help.
And then if you could give a person like advice, like a young person that wants to follow in your footsteps of being like a community person, what would you tell them about approaching the lifestyle that you maintain?
Well, first of all, about how to maintain the lifestyle.
I'm just saying, like, what would you tell, like, advice? Like, if somebody was a B-boy, like, hey, you got to do this, like, keep an eye out for this. Like, what advice would you give if you had somebody that, like, likes hip-hop, likes the church, how to bring it together, or just likes something in general?
I think one, being true to who you are in the midst of it, right? Not allowing even however hip hop changes. If you true to the '90s hip hop, you true to the you ever seen the movie Dope? Remember that movie Dope? It's a great movie.
No, I never saw it.
These kids were so true to '90s hip hop. It was, but they were true to that, right? And so having knowing that's what feeds you. I think the cultivating a community that affirms each other in those particular spaces as you're growing in your own way. As you're engaged in the community, listen to the community. You got to listen to the people. I can't come in and be like, man, I think everybody needs empanadas, and it's like, no, we just want sauerkraut. What are you talking about? So having to listen to the community is key because of what you may bring. It may not be respected because you got the skill to do it, and you bring that in there, and why nobody showed up or why didn't anything happen. Having to know that even Christ said, right, the poor will be with you always. It'd be different if Jesus would have said, like, the poor will be with you to the 80s. Then you'd be like, oh man, things are going to change. Everybody's going to have decent money. But because the problems of our society are going to be with us always, know that we can't solve it. Nobody in anybody's lifespan has solved them. They brought some attention to the water was bad and they got wells, but then they got to get other people to build those wells. So know that we all have a capacity and be okay with that. At the end of the day, did I do what I could do with the capacity I had and was honest with that? Great, I did. That's key.
No, yeah, for sure. I think that I like to live in my mom passed away in 2006. And so one of the things that I came to terms with was like 3 things that I want to leave. So the first one is that I want to live my life to the fullest.
Yeah.
The second one is that I want to leave something for the next generation. And then the third is that I want to make sure that I didn't hold back with something.
Okay,
Like that I actually challenge myself to do stuff and to be a better person.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's good. You want to leave empty, that you put everything on the table. I always tell people, like, the richest place in the world is a cemetery, right? Where folks had some stuff they never did. But man, those ideas could have cured cancer. You could have, fixed flying cars or whatever you could have done, in that space.
Yeah. And I was just telling my wife yesterday, because a family member just passed away. Like, I want to be totally immersed in my death, like I want to feel it, and like it's the only time you're gonna feel it. You know what I'm saying? So you might as well be present in it and see the beauty in it. Like, yo, I left this. Y'all, peace.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going and I'm satisfied with what I did here.
Right.
I think that when we talk about heaven and hell, in my mind, the hell is regretting a lot of what you did in this lifetime and just wasted the potential away to like do positive things and be a positive person.
Yeah.
I think that that's the real hell.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you got to be like, yo, you did everything you could, man.
Right.
What do you want to leave with your legacy, and then how can people get in contact with you?
Legacy, people may put that on folks, man. I just want to do life right, man. I want to be an example of what the path that I felt I'm passionate and called in can be built upon by somebody else. Like, finally, like Pastor Victor left a path. Like, yo, you can be in a community preaching. You can recognize folks. You can walk with folks. You can march. You don't have to be away and know that you should be in a community, but you don't know how to do it. That laid the path for folks to go even more crazier in the way he's built that, right? So that would be that people would know that that God is real, and God is real through our life experiences in those spaces. And they talk about the Lord's Prayer, where it's Christ says thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, right? And so God wants us to make down here look like up there. Well, how does that look when it comes to senior citizens? How does it look when it comes to helping people with the DMV? Can you just be a nice person at the DMV, right? And so having to make down here look like up there in whatever sphere that is, as a teacher, podcast, as a mechanic, like make it healing spaces in those ways. So I would say that family would be key. That there's a value in family and value in prioritizing family, because even in the years of doing this work in ministry, I didn't prioritize family. I prioritized everybody else's kids and family and their families. And then it would be like, oh, we didn't go on vacation this year. Dang, okay, I didn't get a chance to see this game, and gradually learned that hurt my family, my kids, and learned to change that instead of talk about it, just being about it, right? And so the legacy of family, legacy of an authentic relationship with God, ugly, bad, good, celebratory, mad, everything. That God didn't care you mad. He can go off on God. Like my kids, I'm going to be dad. You can go off on me. I'm still dad. I'm still going to be dad. Like,
I'm still going to love you.
I'm still going to love you. We're still going to figure it out. And I should have did that. I don't know why I did it, and let's not do that again. So in that space, you can have that kind of relationship with God and be for the people, like our outreach team, all the people in your area that you focus on, the area, they should know all your business cards. So if something happens on the block, they should call you. Like, hey man, tomorrow can you come through, or can you come through tonight? So that they know they're empowered, not because they kind of call the police, and not because you can fix everything, but they at least feel that they, as a resident, have an advocate for them in that space, and whatever it might be, man. So that,
for sure,
that's a key for me.
And then how can people reach out to the Firehouse Community Arts Center, or reach out to you, or like you have a podcast as well? Like, let people know how they can link up with you.
Definitely can check us out at know some of the stuff that we're trying to do is we're upgrading our website at thefcac.org, and you could call us at 773-522 FIRE. That's how it goes. Fire.
All right, dope. We'll put it up.
Right.
So you'll be able to see it on the video.
Email me, Pastor Phil at thefcac.org. You could call me at 773-398-6764, my cell phone. You can come by and visit 2111 South Hamlin. We have a big block party we're going to do this year, August 24th, in conjunction with a car show and a jazz fest. And man, we're trying to bring in Jelly Roll if we can. Some of the stuff he's saying on some country stuff, like, yo, let's try to see what happens.
That's dope.
Then we're going to bring in Joey Badass, but there's a group that we had last year, SOL Development, that everybody's like, yo, we got to bring Soul Development back.
They were intense, man.
Yeah. They're good people, man. They got a story, and they're all about mental health and mental wellness, man. Wellness is a new genre, so let's spit that out as a way of through hip hop in that space, right? So, so those are the spaces, man. We have our podcast. It's also on SiriusXM Radio every Sunday called Church on the Block. Real talk about hip hop, the church in the streets, man. And really, Sunday mornings at 9 on channel 140. But once it's on there, for about a month or so, it'll be on the podcast. Got to get folks updated and get it going on there in that way. But man, that's what we had. Us four of us on there: Amy Williams, Pastor Jay, and Terrence Foster. Yeah.
Word. Well, thank you very much for making it to the 500 and Growing podcast. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the energy that you give to North Lawndale. When Pastor Vic passed away, everybody was Pastor Vic's best friend. I was like, hold on, man. Exactly. Like, hold on, man. He was my best friend. Like, what you talking about?
Right.
You can't know Pastor Vic as well as I know Pastor Vic. Right. So it's like, I imagine that you make that impact as well. And I just want to let you know that we love you for it.
I love you too, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, long walk in the same direction. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Pastor Phil. We're 500 and Growing. Please reach out if you want some more creative content at 500andgrowing.com. We're also produced by Where You At Productions. If you have a vision, you want to share you want to share a message, you want to share why you started things, please reach out to whereyouatproductions.com. We're out. Thank you.
500 and growing. Podcast.
Dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you. Working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you. Ready to set it off and on, cause I see you. Correcting all that is wrong, cause I see you. Dedicated to your craft, read and study the math. Making goals and taking a stand. Original, so you trailblaze a path. In tune with your inner master plan.
Visit 500andgrowing.com for more creative content.
Thank you very much for listening to the 500 and Growing podcast. Remember that we have incredible guests that have already featured in episodes in the past. So please go back into the archives and listen to their inspirational stories. And then remember that we have incredible guests lined up for the future. So please follow on Instagram at 500 and Growing Podcast. Remember to follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the major podcast platforms. You can also check out 500andgrowing.com for more creative content.
500 and growing.